6.1 aka Luna 2 of Genshin Impact is either already here or coming extraordinarily soon depending on when I release this video, and I bet many of you are eager to learn about the new banners. If you're planning on spending at all on these or future banners, then now's a good time to mention Loot Bar. Loot Bar is a top-up site that utilizes currency exchange so you can buy Genesis crystals for a discounted price. You can save up to 25% by using the service, and it's safe to use with tens of thousands of positive reviews. I've used their services many times before, and so I can personally recommend them. For example, if I were to buy a Welkin, I'd be saving over $1 every time, which definitely adds up. All you have to do is enter your UID and select your server, and you'll receive your purchase within minutes. You can also use Loot Bar for other games like Honkai Star Rail and Zenless Zone Zero. And in case you're curious, some other well-known Genshin content creators such as DuckTV, Jello Impact, and Ride Shotgun have publicly used a lot of their services before. With that said, let's get back into the banner discussion, and thank you Loot Bar for sponsoring this video. In phase 1, we have Nefer and Furina. Nefer is a Dendro Catalyst DPS and is looking to be very strong. She focuses on Lunar Bloom reactions, and so if you already have Lorma, then she is a very easy pickup. I would say that if you're looking for a Dendro DPS, she is a very strong, if not the current best option damage wise, probably up there with maybe the top 5, I want to maybe up there with like the top 5 DPS characters. That's kind of like an estimate. That's not me being like, yes, that's definitely where she's gonna sit, but I want to say roughly around that point when you consider all of the variables and the fact that we're kind of in a Nordcry meta right now. The main thing to keep in mind, however, is that she ideally wants Lorma in her best teams. That isn't to say you can't get her if you don't have Lorma. However, if you want to get Nefer and you want to like invest in her, then Lorma is almost a definite character that you would want to save for in the future, because getting Nefer and then choosing not to get Lorma later on, you're kind of bottlenecking your Nefer at that point. That being said, if you don't care about damage, you don't really care about that kind of stuff anyways, you just think, haha, pretty lady, I want to get her, then go for it, you definitely can. It honestly feels like we don't have access to Nefer's best team options yet, as Ino is simply fine. She's the Kachina of Nordcry, similar to how for a while there we would use Kachina on the very early Mualani teams, but after Jalonin released, you'd kind of only ever use Jalonin on the Mualani teams instead. You wouldn't go back to using Kachina unless you really like Kachina. Nefer will probably get a more tailored Hydro support in the future. My guess is that it will be Columbina. That being said, Ino's gonna work fine, you know, for the time being. Furina works despite not buffing Lunar reactions, or reactions in general for that matter, because she has a lot of personal damage to offer. There's also Kokomi if you want some sustain. You can also look into maybe using a Nefer or some other characters. Baiju, Yao Yao, they would work. Maybe Zhongli for a shield, things along those lines. Furina was, and honestly still is, in my opinion, a fantastically designed unit. You'll see a lot of people say that she's lost value since she doesn't buff reaction damage, but I think that just means she won't be as useful during the Nordcry meta. She is still very strong for many teams. She buffs raw damage very well, and even though she can't buff the Lunar reactions, she is still able to provide her own personal damage as well that still really holds up. If you love her, get her. You can't really go wrong with getting Furina. Just keep in mind she probably won't be the most ideal choice for a lot of the Nordcry Lunar reaction team comps. That was a mouthful. I seriously doubt her value will drop too much though, since raw damage percent buffing is still overall great. She is insanely versatile and she fits onto so many teams. She's a sub DPS buffer. All you really need is a healer on her team, and then you're pretty much good to go. And then pretty much any one of these DPS characters she can work well with, including 4 stars that I did not list in this tier list. The only DPS character she's going to be a little bit weird with is mostly the reaction focused ones. Nefer, Flynn's, you know, even then though she still provides her own personal damage. And then there's also Arlecchino who can't heal, but there are some workarounds. Maybe if you have a C1 or C2 Furina, Furina, that kind of resolves that issue a little bit more, and so you can use her with Arlecchino if you wanted to. And then when it comes to healers, you probably want to go with a healer that does more team-wide healing. However, characters like Bennett, Kuki, which I just realized I did not list on this tier list, that's hilarious, they also do work. They don't heal quite as much, so you won't get as much fanfare stacks as you would if you use Jean or Shen Yun, but she's still good. You're still going to be getting a lot of buffing overall. Now, moving on to weapons, specifically Nefer's weapon. Nefer's weapon all around is kind of stacked from what I can see. Obviously, it's Nefer's best weapon option, but it also seems like a very nice stat stick for a lot of other catalyst uses as well. It could work on Morlani, Nuvolette, Wanderer, Yamiko, Veressa, even someone like DPS Lanyan. It would obviously be better for characters that can utilize elemental mastery. I can see this being a strong option for Morlani, just as an overall stat stick, but that doesn't mean that I'd explicitly pull it for Morlani when you also have Nuvolette's weapon that's a great option, and then also her signature. So if you're wanting to get a weapon specifically for another character, I wouldn't go out of your way to get this weapon. If you were to lose to it, get a double, anything along those lines, then it's a really solid stat stick for other characters. Just keep in mind that a lot of the buffs are locked behind the user doing Lunar Bloom damage. Hey, maybe it would work on DPS Lorma, who knows? As for Furina's weapon, it's a great weapon for her damage, but she doesn't get any energy recharge from it. I honestly think that in most cases, you're better off running her free-to-play options like Fluve or Favonius. Her signature weapon is something I'd only get if I really wanted my Furina to do a lot of off-field damage. Her C1 and C2, in my opinion, are just way more worthwhile if you want to put wishes into Furina. That being said, if you do want your Furina doing a lot of personal damage, then it is a good option. Just make sure that you are building a lot of energy recharge on her. In phase 2, we have Arlecchino and Zhongli, two very popular characters, one in particular I totally do not have a bias for. Okay, I'm going to try and keep this as unbiased as I can. Arlecchino is one of the best pyro DPS characters, but she is not as strong as Mavwika, and therefore I wouldn't say she is a meta or must pull. If you want the strongest possible pyro DPS, get Mavwika. If you don't care about Mavwika, but still want a really powerful pyro DPS, then Arlecchino is perfectly viable. Arlecchino is incredibly strong, her main weakness being that she cannot be healed. This means she can feel quite fragile in combat, especially at C0. She has a lot of good free-to-play weapon options, one being literally a 3-star R5 white tassel. Her damage is very front-loaded, so it will fall off later into the rotation, so you usually want to try and play her in a way where she's going to be doing a lot of damage in the first few hits. So naturally, she's very great in melt and vape teams, but she can also work very, very well in mono pyro. I personally really like running her with Emily, Bennett, and Jalonen because Emily also contributes a lot of damage for the overall team as well. I do not have Sitlali, but if you want a very, very good teammate for Arlecchino, Sitlali is a great, like one of the best options. Chevreuse is great in her overload teams, especially at C6. She is a very versatile character, lots of teammate options. You could even run something like Double Geo with Zhongli Chiori, Zhongli Albedo, and while it's not going to be crazy, she is just very versatile. You could probably run her with Mavwika as a support in mono pyro. I mean, that's a bit weird because Mavwika would just does more damage as a DPS, but like you can do that. Lanyan's a good option because hey, she can run Viridescent Veneer set and provide a shield, so that's all overall useful when your Arlecchino is C0. You kind of can run Furina with Arlecchino. It just kind of depends. I would say it's more okay if you've got C1 or C2 Furina. C0 Furina, it's a bit weird. Like, I don't really recommend it, but hey, Furina's personal damage goes crazy, so it's really up to you. A lot of options, and I didn't even list them all. This is a really botchy tier list. Yeah, you can run a lot of teams with Arlecchino. Overall, she's a great pull, but of course, to balance out the glaze, she can be fragile. As I said, her damage is not as high as Mavwika, so as always, if you love her, get her. If you do not, then I wouldn't bother. Moving on to Zhongli. Zhongli is good. I could only really recommend him now if you like him. His shielding is still great, probably still the best in the game. The little bit of debuffing he gives to enemies is also very nice. But we do now have Lanyan, who is a 4-star, who is also a very good shielder, who is also a Nemo, so she can hold Viridescent Veneer. So like, he doesn't feel quite as valuable as a 5-star as he used to be, because we have a 4-star option that is at C2, I would argue, like, equally as good. That being said, as always, if you really like him, feel free to get him. His shield is very strong. He's still got the strongest shield. He's a good option. I don't think Zhongli has ever really been a meta pull. It's very like, if you need a shielder, he's like the shielder. That's kind of changed a little bit with Lanyan, but he's still just very easy, a very comfy character to use. Great for mobile players. Team options. He can just shield anyone at this point. Yeah. Moving on to the phase 2 weapons. Arlecchino's weapon isn't needed. The biggest reason to pull her weapon is for the drip, because the scythe looks awesome. It does increase her damage by a significant amount, but overall it's kind of just a cool scythe for her. She has a lot of free to play or just other options in general, so it isn't something that you have to get. If you want Arlecchino, there are so many other options that you can just settle permanently with. You don't ever need to pursue her weapon. That being said, it is still very good on her. It will boost her damage. For me, I pulled the weapon just because it's a really cool scythe. It looks awesome on her. Definitely not a necessity though. That, and it's also not very viable on any other character except her. So it's not like a weapon I can recommend, but if you're an Arlecchino main, then I can recommend it. Okay, Zhongli's weapon. It is entirely rubbish. Don't bother. If you lose to this while trying to get Arlecchino's weapon, my condolences. I would probably skip Arlecchino's weapon this banner, just so that you don't risk getting this monstrosity. It is rubbish. It's not even good on anyone in the game, especially not Zhongli, because he does not scale with attack, like, much at all. It's just bad. Good luck. I hope that this video was in some way useful to you. In no way am I a theory crafter, but I did want to share some of my general knowledge on these characters so that you could feel a little bit more prepared before pulling any of them. At the end of the day, I always like to preach that you should pull for whoever you like, no matter who they are. However, if you're someone who does care about account value, then hopefully this was some use to you. With all of that said and done, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.